Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I am Robert Haynes, your host and your guide into the world of TSM. So couple quick, mini announcements. I am planning on doing a couple things with this show coming up for the break. For those of you who don't know, TSM lost. They are not going to MSI, which is obviously sad face, but the LCS summer split does not begin for 2 months essentially. We will not see TSM play again until June 4th, which is right after my birthday, by the way. June 3rd, birthday. Yeah. So maybe we'll get a big dub there for our boys on the day after my birthday. But with that, I am going to be keeping it to one show per week. It's a lot of work, honestly, with these shows in terms of rewatching VODs, making sure that I have the right information. I hope you guys have been enjoying how in-depth I've been going. I think from the beginning of the split until the end of the split or season, whatever it is. Now, that I feel like the show's got a lot more informative, and that was my goal ultimately by splitting it into two. And truthfully, it won't be as big of an issue once baseball season is over. For all my baseball boys out there, another shout out for you guys. Guys know, go special place in my heart. And so I've been coaching, and there's just been a lot of nightly activities for me. Even though I'm mostly just going and coaching the games, but we're playing like 3 and 4 games a week. So there's just a lot of stuff going on with that. I think once the season's over, doing 2 episodes a week won't be as arduous as it has been for me, but I'm kind of looking forward to a break from 2 shows a week for right now. Honestly, the next 2 months I think will be a good way for me to kind of gain perspective, look back on what's worked with this show, what hasn't worked, kind of go through all that stuff. So it will be 1 show a week on Thursdays from here on out, or not from here on out until probably like the week before. Nah, I'll probably still do like a big Thursday show, likely on my birthday. I believe that my birthday is on a Thursday. It will. So we'll have a TSM birthday for me edition on June 3rd. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here. But I want to make sure that you guys understand that, I'm probably going to go back to 2 episodes once the season begins. It's just for these next couple months, we're going to do 1 show, and I'm going to try to jam pack it with everything that you guys already like. Make sure that I am, doing some, bringing on some guests. There are some people from the Talking TSM Discord, which you should make sure that you join, by the way. There will be a link, I believe, in the description, but if not, you can also just message me on Twitter or something, and you can join our Discord, where there's a lot of really smart individuals who are, LCS fans, but also TSM fans. Mostly, there are a couple like TL infiltrators, but they respect TSM, so that works. But yeah, there's some good stuff. I'm really excited for us to kind of bring on some people, talk to them, maybe get a player or a coach from from the main team. I'll be working on that. I'm hopeful as well that there may be giveaways and other things in the future. There's a lot of things I want to do with this show that I didn't really get a chance to because we did the off-season stuff and then we jumped right into the season. I'm gonna hopefully spend some time here soon and reflect on, well, everything, truthfully. Try to get a good understanding of where we're at and what we're going to be doing going forward, honestly. So, yeah, with that, let's jump into the main portion of the show. If you can't tell already by my reaction, I honestly almost didn't even want to do the show just because of the fact that the games were just so disappointing. Yeah, that's the word I will use, is disappointing. TSM finished the playoffs 8-8 and 2-6 specifically against Team Liquid. I'm not going to do the same format that I've been doing because there are a couple things I really want to talk about with this series. And I don't think going game by game is really going to do much for us. I think some of us, obviously, clearly myself, are still a little bit in mourning, even though I figured I was like, maybe I was like maybe between Saturday and Thursday I will have gotten over it a little bit more. And I went back and rewatched the VODs this morning, and I'm still watching these VODs and seeing how badly we threw some of these games. And then game 4, I couldn't even watch game 4. I watched the first maybe couple minutes of game 4. And then I just stopped. I couldn't do it. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever turned off a TSM playoff game. And I turned off game 4 during it. It was just too hard to watch. They just fell apart. And so I'll do the very quick thing that I normally like to do. Game 1, honestly, I thought we were playing pretty well. Yeah, we were getting all these turrets and stuff, and Spica stole the Baron. It was a super low kill game. Both teams were playing very conservatively. I actually think TSM should have been playing way more aggressively just because of the fact that Armeo, while he played well, our boy Greg, one of the only one of the only TSM interviews I've ever done in person was with Greg. Good kid, clearly very nervous. You could tell even during the interview that I did with him. But this team just looked overly nervous. They looked scared to make any mistakes, and they did what they did. It was so weird. It was this was so reminiscent of the opening FlyQuest game, where clearly nerves were there. And I think that nerves affect this team a lot more than any of us would like, because they're just so, I don't know. They're just they play without confidence. They play with such hesitancy. And it's truly that TSM just, they don't look like the same team when they do that. And so going through and rewatching this, I was reminded that it wasn't until really the end of game 1 where they were starting to kind of pick it up and they were figuring things out and they were starting to feel confident. It's okay, guys, let's go. Yeah, we stole the Baron. Probably shouldn't have had to do that. Probably should have had it warded. Probably should have been better prepared for it. They weren't. That is what it is. But I do think that they took advantage of the Baron. They clawed their way, not back because they really weren't too far behind, but they clawed their way to winning position. And then they just fell apart. And I just don't really understand how this keeps happening, where they'll have like one, maybe two bad fights. Well, realistically, it'll be one. They'll have one really bad fight, and then it leads into another bad fight, and then it leads into them dying at an objective, and then they lose, or it's they have a bad fight, give up the objective, have another bad fight, and then lose. And it's just the snowballing, just mental boom that this team goes through in a lot of these games is so unbelievably upsetting because they just keep doing it. And it's not like they can't stop it, because we've seen that they can. But during these big opponents, it's like they see TL and they see C9 and they're like, oh God, what are we gonna do? Okay, we're kind of coming back here. All right, things are looking pretty good. Oh my God, we just threw this game. And we're just going to keep inting our way into bad positions because we're going to just keep making terrible calls. And I just, it's like they play so passively, and then when they start losing, they start playing overly aggressively. And I'm sure it's clear they're watching the LPL, they're watching the LCK, they're trying to learn some of these styles. What do they do well? Because remember, the ultimate goal of this team is to make it to Worlds and succeed. Yes, titles are cool and important. But overall, the goal of this team is to walk out of the summer season in the top 3 with a chance to have an impact at Worlds. And really, every NA fan, by the way, should be absolutely busting it and bleeding out for Cloud9 to win MSI, because if they do, then we get a 4th seed at Worlds. That's a huge bonus for TSM. Not that I'm worried that they're not going to be top 3. I think they will be top 3. I felt very confident about that. I did say that they'd end up being 3rd overall, and I think I cursed them by saying that at the beginning of this season. I said 3rd was probably their highest high, and that'd be TL and C9, and it was exactly what we all thought. I also got 100 Thieves right. I said they'd be their biggest opponent. I was wrong about that. I think that's mostly just because 100 Thieves made really stupid decisions during the season, but that is what it is. But getting back to this, right? TSM have got to stop looking at TL and C9 as these unbeatable opponents. They can't beat them. They did beat Cloud9. They did beat TL during this season. Overall, TSM were 4-6 against TL in their 10 games that they faced them between the regular season and the playoffs. I don't really count lock-in because, truthfully, it's like, why would you count a preseason game of football or a spring training game of baseball, right? Like, those don't count to me, and I see the lock-in tournament as that. I know there's money on the line, and teams took it seriously, but I just see it as a really nice preseason and a way for teams to kind of figure out who they are, and if they win something, great. If not, then whatever. They can use it to catapult themselves into the season. So I don't count that, and some people, I'm sure somebody's out there like, well, you're just saying that because TSM didn't do well. Like, no, I'd probably say the same thing. Even if TSM won, I'd be like, yeah, they won, but that's a preseason. Now we get into the real thing. And we saw how much things changed between the preseason, right? I mean, Dignitas were one of the worst teams in the lock-in. TSM didn't play well. 100 Thieves was one of the best teams. They finished 4th. Cloud9 looked like they were off their kilter. TL honestly looked like one of the best teams. And truthfully, I think if TL had Santorin, I do think that these series between TSM and C9 go very differently. Not that Armeo was bad, because he honestly was pretty solid, but he just didn't, he couldn't gel. He didn't have time to practice with this team. I'm sure Santorin feels terrible, but man, if he's that sick, there's nothing that they can do there. He's just got to take care of himself. So, he's got a long season ahead of him. It's not like summer or Worlds. I think everybody would agree summer and Worlds matters more. It always has. It's just that way. And spring is cool, But I think the ultimate example is last year with Spring. Cloud9, win it, then they didn't even make it to Worlds. Worlds is the ultimate goal, guys. No matter what anybody else tells you, being successful and winning a world championship, that's what matters in League of Legends. That is what every single team wants to do. And if they tell you differently, then they're lying to themselves or they're just bad. You can watch the LEC. They are playing not to win a championship. That's great, right? I'm sure Odoamne was really upset when he lost that LEC finals. But his ultimate goal is to go to Worlds and succeed at Worlds. TSM, TL, and C9, that is their goal. They all three want to win at Worlds. They want to succeed. Go back and look at the reason a lot of these teams made these moves. They say, yeah, LCS titles, great, cool. Regular season success, great, cool. Our goal is to win at Worlds. So when you see TSM making these really bad mistakes against teams that truly they are as good or better than, which I truly believe that they are better than TL. After what I saw in a lot of these series, I think that they can be and should be better than TL. But they obviously aren't, at least right now, because they throw these leads. And game 2 was like the biggest one. You're up by 8,000 gold, and you lost because you wouldn't ban Rel. Like, please, God, like, why do we keep giving people their best shit? Like, we beat Evil Geniuses because we had a great plan of we're not going to let Jizuke beat us, and we're not going to give Impact his best champion. TL, while not as easily exploitable as that, you don't give away the best freaking support in the game for nothing. Like they literally picked Renekton in the first round of bans when they could have just picked the Rel. They already picked Gnar. You don't need to pick Renekton into it. It's not like, oh God, Huni's gonna lose because he didn't get his Renekton. He's not gonna win that matchup anyways. So why even pick that right there? Just pick the freaking Rel, dude. Like we have seen time and time again that Rel is just too strong right now. It does not matter if she loses in lane, because when it comes to the ultimate game, which is team fighting, that is how you win League of Legends, is you are a better skirmishing or team fighting team. Unless if your lane is able to get 8,000 gold leads regularly, which we saw this in game 2. It did not matter. It didn't matter because when it came time to team fight, TSM lost. They didn't have enough CC, and they didn't have enough tanky champions and frontline champions. That's just the way the game is right now. You can't, I understand that the double AD carry comp is pretty solid along with the Lilia. That's cool. But when you rely on Gnar to be and Alistar to be your only frontline options, that's not going to get it done. They had almost next to no CC on that team. And it's just too important to just give up. I know I'm rambling right now. There's just a lot of frustration when watching this series. So again, we'll keep this in game 1. Game 1, they threw it, guys. They just threw it. They had a chance to win this game. They were playing the macro really well. Yeah, they were a little nervous. They weren't taking fights as well as they should have. They should have been way more aggressive, punishing Armeo. And something that I will talk about at some point is the lack of focus on taking down Alfari. Okay, I'll wait. I will wait. So they throw this game. We go into game 2. They bring out the Lucian. And I'm like, oh, God, I don't know how I feel about this. We've had the one game of Lucian where PoE was awesome, and then we had the other one where it was pretty awful. And they pull it out, and they played super well. I mean, they were up so much gold. And then It's not the fight that TSM take. So they're up 8-2. Okay, so this is not the ultimate fight where Core JJ loses them the game by jumping over the red. Instead, it's the fight where they see Core JJ. And Power of Evil uses one of his dashes to try to kill Core JJ. Now, to be fair, TSM have 4 members in the quadrant. They've got Core JJ separated. But Rel is Rel. And even with not a single completed item, this is how busted this champion is. Without a single completed item, he is unable to kill her because she gets some ridiculous shield, jumps in, gets them all together, and then because they have an ultimate dive comp, and the 2 people who are closest to him are Tactical and Jensen, and they also have an Alfari ult to put over top of it, which they wait, were they able to do it? Wait 1 second. I gotta rewatch this part real quick. Okay, yeah, so he waits to use his ult, which I don't know why he waited, but he did. Okay? And they're able to jump in on the 2 squishiest members of TSM. Because Power of Evil doesn't have a way to get out. And it's like these absolutely ridiculous moments. Because then Sword Art and Lost are like, hey, well, hump, dump, dump, dump. We're going to run right on in too. And then we die. And Hooney's out there looking like, what are you doing, guys? And I just, oh, God. I watched that and I was like, dude, this is over now. They just threw the game. They just, like, Power of Evil and Spica were, I'm pretty sure they had bounties on them. No, just Power of Evil. Just Power of Evil and Lost. Well, no, because then Lost dies too. And the Gragas, so Sword Art. So they got 450 gold on top of everything else. No, Lost doesn't die here. Okay, cool. Lost didn't die. Either way. So they got 300 gold on top of the kills, on top of the shutdowns. And, TSM, they do the same freaking thing, man. They snowball a losing fight. And they look at the one, oh my God, I'm just watching this. They see the ward come out. And for some reason, Lost, instead of going towards his teammates, goes towards, Oblivion. There's nothing over there. He has no vision anymore. So why not go towards the place you have your vision towards your teammates? And then Spica is like, well, I'm going to try to jump on in and save him here, guys. Don't worry about it. I'm going to flash in. And which I want to watch that. Is there a bug here? There's got to be a bug. Because he Qs. Oh my God. Okay, no. Jensen wasn't in there yet. All right, so he Qs. He sleeps 3 of them. But there's not enough damage. There's not enough peel. They could just jump on and delete somebody. And they just can't do anything about it. And, dude, it was over after that. They go on. They win game 3, which I think was a gracious win. I don't know. They probably shouldn't have won this game, honestly. They do. Which is great. Obviously, I think putting Alfari on Sion was a huge mistake. We don't see it happen again. Speak of getting Udyr, definitely. I complained about Udyr. Udyr ended up being his best champion. It looked like. He had really gotten it down. I love this comp from TSM in Game 3. I do think that they lack a little bit of peel. But I think the Rakan was a nice response. Obviously, Power of Evil's Orianna was just outstanding. He had another good series, by the way. I think he just keeps leveling up. I think when we get to the summer, maybe first couple games he might struggle a little bit, but by the middle of the season, he's going to be potentially, able to really battle with perks for a top spot. They shut down Jensen pretty much all season too, all season, yes. Not as much in the first series, but in the second series, they really shut him down. And then Game 4 happened, and that's just not even worth talking about. Game 4 is just not worth talking about, guys. There's nothing worth discussing in that game. They just clearly were so inted. There was something wrong with Spica. I don't know that we've heard or seen anything about what was up with him. There was clearly something wrong with him, though. That he was grabbing his side. I was pretty worried about it, and they showed BABIP for a few minutes when the analysts were talking after Game 3, and I was just sitting there putting my hands in my head, or my head in my hands, and just being like, "Oh my God, is Spica hurt? Like, is he okay?" And after that, because health of player is always more important, but then after I got past that fact, I said, "Oh my God, they're going to have to play BABIP. They're going to have to stall this series, go pick him up from wherever he's, playing from," which I don't even know if he's in the U.S. I think he is. I'm pretty sure he is. And they're going to have to pull his butt up and play in this series. Double Academy jungler. That's what I was ready for. But it didn't matter, and clearly TSM were off their vibe. I've never seen a team just absolutely int the way they did after a pretty nice win, honestly. Guys, it was just bad. It was a terrible series. They should have won the first 2 games. It's just like the last series, man. They should have won. They had, and yes, like, you have to give credit where credit is due. TL never gave up. Core JJ was an absolute animal, but they kept giving him the rel. And it's just like, when are you going to learn that you can't do this kind of stuff? And TSM just like, again, Game 4 should not have happened the way it happened. I don't really understand what happened. They actually had good picks. Their draft was pretty strong. I did not really see much of an issue with it. They just got outplayed. They got the rel themselves. They put Alfari on the Scion. Tactical played freaking Senna, for God's sakes. And they just got stomped. There's no reason they should have gotten beat that bad. There's none. They just clearly were mentally boomed or something. They just, I don't know. They played terribly. They did not do what they needed to do to find success. And then we were out. And so I went on my rant about rel. I seriously, if somebody can explain to me why we gave Core JJ of all people the rel 2 straight freaking games, and guess what? He made us pay. Like, you would have thought after Game 1. Sorry, this is gonna continue. You would have thought after Game 1, TSM would have been like, you know what, guys? Like, that Core JJ guy's pretty good. I know he wasn't the main reason that he won, but like, that rel was actually a huge pain in the butt. Didn't love that. I think we should probably ban it or pick it. I don't know. That might not be a bad idea. And then, and the Gragas, by the way, was fine. Sword Art played a pretty solid Gragas that game, at least to start. So I'm not overly upset about the Gragas. I just wish they wouldn't have given up the rel. Because then in Game 2, by the way, that's what I mean. In Game 2, the Gragas was fine. They give him the rel. And the Gragas is okay. But then, they just, he made 2 great plays on a champion that just doesn't die to, AD. She's an armor machine. She's literally like a metallic bender, like Avatar. She bends metal. She is Toph. She is the non-blind version of Toph, essentially. Metallurgy. And he just kept making plays. And they had a great team comp that was literally made just for that. And it's like TSM stays as 5, and guess what? They could have 4-1. They should have probably 4-1. And everything is in hindsight, obviously. But it's just, man, that was tough to watch. And the biggest thing I had an issue with, the number one, if you thought the rel was a problem, no. The number one issue I had with TSM's strategy was leaving Alfari alone. When C9 beat them twice, I would like to remind you, it's not because Fudge could beat Alfari. And I don't care about the narrative of Fudge was better than Alfari. That's not true. C9 focused on putting Alfari down. And they won because of it. That's where TL are exploitable. There's nobody on TL's team that are good enough, at least currently, once Alfari doesn't have the ability to take over the game. Because he took over the game in at least two of the games for TSM. And when they were winning against Cloud9, it was because Alfari was taking over. He was that big of an impact on this team. And TSM saw it. I mean, we talked about it last week. Focus Alfari. One of the biggest notes I had. I think one of the top 3 freaking keys to victory. Just focus him. You don't have to kill him. You don't have to beat him in lane. But just put him behind. And I think part of it, sadly, is just Huni being overconfident. And it's not that Huni played badly. Honestly, it's not. Like, in the first 2 games of the series, I mean, you go back and look, and it's not, like, there's no top gap between the two of them. The top gap is because Alfari, if he's not put behind, is good enough to get out of lane and go and dominate. That's why. I mean, seriously, you watch the beginning of this game, and it is not that Huni was playing badly. He was in a bad matchup. Alfari was able to get 30 CS ahead. And again, Huni played as best he could in this matchup. And TSM just ignored him. Core JJ and Alfari beat TSM. Armeo was okay. Jensen was awful. And Tactical was good enough. Huni played all right. Spica did not play great. Power Vivo played great. Lost was okay. And Sword Art was 50-50. That's just how I see it. The series was a huge disappointment, I'm sure, to everybody. I'm really hopeful that they take this time to take a little bit of a break, and then when they come back to it, that they learn not to make these same mistakes. You can't snowball your lead into the enemy's lead. You can't just give it up for nothing. You got to stop. You got to stop the bleeding at some point. It's like they take a small cut and they just take their fingers and they just rip it open themselves. Got to stop that. You also got to stop giving your opponent one of their best freaking champions when you have a chance to take it or to ban it. You do. They did multiple times. When you go back to these picks and bans, dude, they banned the Seraphine and the freaking Twisted Fate. And then the Thresh. And I'm fine with the Seraphine ban if they really aren't going to play it. And I'm fine as well with the Twisted Fate ban if they're really that worried that they can't freaking side lane against Jensen. But if you're going to ban a champion, you ban the best champion from this year, not years past. Thresh, yes, I told you you should watch out for it. But I also say the Rel needs to be banned if TSM aren't going to get it. And they had the opportunity to. I mean, Team Liquid picked Gnar first, dude. That should have been an instant. Hecarim Rel. Bam. Bam, 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 bam. Hecarim well, bam. They just didn't do it. And you have to actually have a game plan. I don't feel against TL that TSM had a game plan. They just had a standard plan, which standard isn't going to beat a team as good as Team Liquid, even with Armeo. All right, let's go over the way TSM played for the regular season, just for the spring overall. After the lock-in and after the first week of the spring, I was very worried for this team. I didn't know there was a chance that they had already reached the absolute bottom of the barrel at that point. After the first C9 game, I was convinced that TSM might be the 8th best team in the LCS, which freaking sucked, by the way. Having to come to that mindset was just an absolute... It was so disappointing, to say the least. So disappointing. And so I kind of came to the conclusion that, hey, maybe this is just going to be a building up for the summer. It still was, but then they just went on that 6-game winning streak, and I was like, all right, this team can be the best when they want to be. Not when they want to be. When they play like it. And so as the spring went on, I gained more confidence in this team. And I think we all did. And for good reason. They were playing better. But when I look back, there are still some really big gaping holes that we have got to kind of resolve. The first one was Spica. Now, I love that boy dearly. And I think that he is still going to be... He's already one of the best junglers in the LCS. And I think that he could be an internationally great jungler. But he complained. He was like, oh, there's only 4 good champions. That's not true, Spica. Yes, there may be 4 that are best played. But, buddy, one of the things you're going to find out is that you're going to have these pocket picks, these other things that you can pull out. Like Bjergsen, right? Bjergsen's Zillion is something that it's unexplainable exactly. That champion does not get played almost anywhere else, but yet he made it work because he knew the champion inside and out. And I think that Spica was a little too responsive to the meta instead of trying to push it himself. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's wrong to think. But it just never felt like he was on the breaking edge. Like he didn't really play the Udyr almost at all until he finally must have had time to practice it and then brought it out during the playoffs. He was just it felt like he was just behind on all the potential trends. He sucked as Talia. God, that was awful. His Graves wasn't great either. And the thing is he's going to see a lot of these champions again. It's not like these things are going to change all of a sudden. Because they're not. They're just straight up not going to. If we look at the LPL, here's what they have been playing in the jungle. Udyr, Olaf, Lilia, Hecarim, Graves, Nidalee, Pantheon, Talia. Those are those. But they also brought out 10, 15 other champions. Whereas, let me check the LCS here. Oh, sorry guys, 1 second. I didn't have this one prepared because I wasn't planning on doing this, but now I think it's worth it. So the LCS just they just didn't. I mean, it was still Hecarim, Lilia, Olaf, Udyr, Graves, but the Udyr was played way less than almost everywhere else. And teams were willing to bring out like the Karthus, Dr. Mundo, Kindred was even brought out a little bit, the Jarvan, the Rek'Sai. I would have loved to have seen the Jarvan throughout this year, especially for Spica. I think that champion actually would have been really good for them. Then, during the playoffs so far, great. Hecarim's been number one with Udyr. Volibear, dude, where was the Volibear jungle? Oh, my God. Volibear and Set. I know Set's not as great in the jungle now, but, I think Volibear would have been really good for Spica. We don't play. I would love to see Huni and Spica work on the Volibear for the summer. I think that'd be great. I would love to see it. I think the news in Jal might be something that's worth watching going forward. And I think the Nocturne, TSM, they were able to adapt in other ways, but Spica specifically just felt like he was totally reacting to everything and not trying to do things on his own, and it felt like his pathing was not great. His kill participation until the playoffs was pretty bad, and that's something he's gonna have to change. And I think that I liked the Spica I saw in playoffs a lot more than the Spica that I saw during the regular season. He was just better. Frankly, he was just better. All right. Then with that, I think Sword Art got better as he got more confident. I also think that he, kind of made some more mistakes as he got confident. He wasn't really doing as much at the beginning, and that wasn't great. But then he also, started, doing all these other, he started trying to do too much sometimes. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. He showed a nice champion pool. I would have loved to have seen them pull out the Galio. I know that it wasn't super duper meta, but there were so many good situations for it, and the way that Sword Art plays Galio, I just assumed that he would have been fine to pick it during the playoffs. I think there's some pretty good spots where it could have been in. Could have been a really nice just pick for specifically for TSM. But they just, they didn't really play global champions either, and that's something that's pretty concerning going forward. They tried the TF. The TF wasn't very good. They tried the Gangplank. It wasn't very good. The Galio was really the Galio and the Nocturne were the two that I felt were their truly best champions, in terms of global pressure. And I think that hurt them a lot, and that's something that they're going to have to work on going forward as well as a team. They don't play. They play the macro very well for a team that doesn't play really any global champions. So I'm hopeful to see TSM as a whole bring those things out. But I think Sword Art, I would have loved to see the Galio more. I didn't love his Alistar in most situations. And I think he should have played the Rel more. I think he should have just spammed it. I think he would have been great at it by the time the playoffs came about, and then other teams would have been banning it instead of TSM. But they didn't have to ban it against TSM because they weren't worried about it. Power of Evil, I thought was a little underwhelming. His kill participation was pretty bad. He wasn't necessarily winning in CS. He was stable, and he would have some pretty good moments in team fights during the regular season, but it wasn't like playoff Power of Evil. That man was like a man possessed. Outside of the 100th Eve series, which, he had one good game in, really good game, he had almost excellent games in nearly every other game because he was just that good. I think that's awesome for him, and I want to see him bring that into his summer self where he's normally his best. And I think he can be the true carry that this team needs. And if I'm TSM, I focus around him. I like to see him bring out the Seraphine picks. I think that was really cool to see too. His Lucian got stronger. He's clearly trying to be more than just the control mage guy. He didn't play Orianna until the playoffs. That was awesome. His Azir was really strong. His Syndra was strong. Like, he is somebody who it's going, unless if it becomes an assassin meta, which in that case we might be in trouble. I just want you guys to know that. I know he has some things he can play into it, but like, oh man, assassin meta in mid lane would be really detrimental to this team. We'll see. I would be shocked if that came about this year or hopefully ever while we have Power of Evil. But he was really strong by the end of the season. I mean, he really tried to carry this team. I was really proud of him. Lost was solid. He was better than I thought he was going to be. He finished as a top 10 ADC in the league, which is great. Did I say top 10? Top 5. Sorry, top 5 ADC. Obviously, he's top 10. But top 5 ADC, I think with more time and more confidence, he will be even better. I think, I was a little worried. They just put him on Jhin duty, at the beginning of the year, and I was like, oh, God, this is going to be bad. But then as the season went on, he just kept playing Kai'Sa, and everybody's like, oh, he's only a Kai'Sa player. Then he would bring out, the Xayah and the Tristana. And I know he can play Aphelios. He didn't get to play it much this year. He didn't get to play it, as well as he should have, but he's clearly rusty. But overall, like, Lost exceeded my expectations. He was a pretty solid overall player for TSM. He didn't participate much. Like, if he was in fights, he was getting the kills. I would like to see him more involved in team fighting, and that includes, going into the later game. But overall, I was impressed with the way that Lost played. There is an argument to be made that he's higher than top 5. I think I can feel comfortable saying he's at least 5th. I'd have to do a little bit more research into it to really break it down. There were some arguments for putting him 3rd on our All-Pro list. I wasn't comfortable with that. I think still... I can't remember his name from Dignitas. Neo I thought was really the outstanding AD carry, but Lost played well. He definitely played better than Tactical. AD carry is a promising role for NA. I know that a good amount of them aren't actually, NA AD carries, but including Lost, but he played well. I was proud of him. I think he's going to be a very solid addition. I hope they don't Cody, I'm sorry if you're listening to this, bud, because I care about you. But I would be really disappointed if Cody's son came in for Lost for next split. I think that would be a really I think that wouldn't be as good for TSM because of the fact that I think Lost, we don't really know his true ceiling yet. We know what Cody's son's in, and it is good. Don't get me wrong, he's been playing his butt off, and I think he deserves. There are some teams, Immortals. Well, maybe not Immortals. Sorry, there are some teams in the LCS that could use an AD carry, and there are some teams even in the LEC that could use an AD carry. And I think Cody's son would be that guy. I think he is good enough to burst his way back into the LCS somewhere. I don't think it's with TSM, sadly, because I think Lost's potential could be top 3 AD carry. He wasn't there yet, obviously, by the end of the season, but I think there is the potential for him to be that as he grows and continues to play more games. So I think it would be a disservice for them to do anything other than guarantee that these are the 5 players that they're going to have next year, because I'm going to go on to Huni, and maybe it's because my expectations of Huni were just so scattered. But I truly believe that this might have been the best Huni we have seen since his SKT days. Now, I will be honest with you. I was not somebody who was constantly watching Huni. But it looks like he just became this very different player. And I think we saw that. His postseason wasn't as good. I'll be honest with you. It was not as good as I was hoping. It just wasn't. I think Alfari is definitely better than him, but I do think that Hooney deserves credit because I don't think that anybody else other than Alfari is like truly better than Hooney. I think that he can at least be even or better than Someday, even or better than Impact. I still think he's better than Fudge. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't. I think the rest of the team is still. Fudge is doing his job, but so far he has not convinced me that he is a top 3 top laner. I'm sure, you guys are wondering, well, what's he going to have to do? Well, I don't know yet because he just plays on a team that has like 4 absolute studs at every other position. So it makes it a lot easier for him to not play as well and still do well. So, yeah, so sorry. Continuing on, like I think Hooney took a huge step forward this year and showed that he can be more than what he was. And what I mean by that is Hooney, he played so many different champions this year. And so many that were kind of not the Hooney style, right? His Gnar was stronger than it had been in the past. His Jace was good, we knew that. His Ornn was solid when he played it. His tank Gragas was great. His AP Gragas wasn't great. It was weird because his Gangplank and his Rumble games were some of the worst games he had all season. But when he played tankier, bruiserier champions, he was so freaking good. I really wish they would have brought out the Shen at some point again. I think they could have brought out the Shen and really, really shook things up. I wish they would have brought out the Shen during the playoffs. I think Shen would have been great. Shen. But sorry, I was just saying that because I kept saying his name a lot. But yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. I think he proved, like, he didn't even bring out the Renekton until later in the season. He showed that he can be both a great tank and a great carry. And that was just awesome to see. I hope he can continue it into the summer. I really want to see him succeed. And I want to see TSM keep him. He's so entertaining. I love watching him on TSM Legends. I was a little worried. I knew he had a big personality, but I was a little worried, losing Broken Blade. What is this team going to look like without him? That was my bigger concern, was just Broken Blade seemed to be really good. And I still think that Broken Blade's very good, by the way. I watched him in the LEC, and he was not the reason why Schalke wasn't winning games. He was possibly their best player at times. Maybe throughout most of the season. I don't know. I have to really rewatch and pay attention a little bit more. But from the little bits that I saw, I thought he was just super good. But I thought Hooney was too. Hooney played really well this season, guys, and we should be proud of him being able to silence the doubters and come out and become, the guy that we needed for this team. He was the glue to this team. And it paid off with him getting an All-Pro. He finished 3rd All-Pro, guys. Think about that. And I truly think he deserved it more than Impact. As much as Impact was amazing throughout the beginning of the season, I think a lot of people were thinking about his lock-in split and not the actual regular split. He was good for a couple weeks, then people started banning Renekton, and it was just straight through the tubes for him. I think Hooney honestly outplayed him throughout the regular season. So, that was obviously I was a little biased, but that is how I felt about it. So, yeah, we exceeded expectations from what we had expected at the start of the season. We obviously had high hopes. Lock-in took him right back down. Then the regular season got him up, and then I think the playoffs showed where we truly were right now. Until we can fix some of these issues, until we can fix these things, we can add things like, global ultimate play. Again, the Shen. I forgot about mentioning the Shen before, but Shen global ultimate was really good for us when we needed it. Our macro was really strong in general. Our vision during the playoffs was not as good and it felt like they changed the way that they were playing, where Sword Art was roaming so much. They felt like they changed real quick. Sorry, I want to take a quick second. They felt like they changed between the regular season and the playoffs in terms of their focus and the way that the style of game that they were playing, which I think was good because it did, help them in terms of their early game a little bit. But I actually would have liked to see a better combination of understanding of like Sword Art moving around a little bit earlier, Lost actually, ganking more. He didn't do it he was just trying to farm. I hope that farming meta goes away. I would love to see him be able to do just all the other things. So no more to farm meta. Spica was just able to play his game when he had junglers that he could go gank on. And leaving Lost to his own devices, I think, is totally fine. And they didn't do that as much. They got away from the Huni tanks. They got away from the Sword Art roaming as much and going for vision. But they gained, the Spica ganking more. And the Huni, Nocturne and Power of Evil was playing better. Like there were parts they had such a good early mid game, and their late game is what struggled. But then during the regular season, their mid and late game were great. Their early game was a problem. When they put it all together, which I hope they will do during the break and during the summer, obviously into Worlds, and then hopefully they do it into Worlds. So basically for the rest of the year, I hope that they will take this break as a time to refocus and understand that they can move forward and make some really great progress, knowing that, they finished third, but they could have won this whole thing. If they put everything together, I truly believe that they could win the LCS and be the best team in the LCS and have success at Worlds. That's what I truly believe. So we will see going forward. But to put a bow on this season, I'm proud of them. I'm proud of Huni for overcoming all the noise, of Lost for overcoming all the noise, of Power of Evil for having to step into Bjergsen's shoes and still being that carry and that voice that the team needed. For Spica, taking that next step. He played a lot of champions he has claimed that he does not like. And he still was able to find success. And for Sword Art, overcoming, again, the noise. $6 million man. Oh, he finishes third, blah, 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 blah. Shut up, guys. Like, he played really well. It was his first time in a new country, and we saw what he did last year. This was better than his last spring split with the LPL. The LPL was tough, man. It is still tough. So I think summer TSM are going to be coming for you. And I think the rest of the LCS should be on alert, because with more time, and God willing, I hope they do not change this team. Keep it the same. Please do not pull 100 Thieves. And I think they will find success in the summer. With that, like I said, I will be going over, we'll see what happens on Thursdays, but there will be shows with, more guests. There are a couple I know who've been in waiting and would like to come on the show. They will get their chance over these next few weeks. I will obviously go over what's been going on during MSI when that gets started next month as well. For these next few weeks, we'll still be kind of looking back on TSM season. We'll be talking to people, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there before we moved on to having the true discussions with the other people. Lastly, there is still TSM stuff to watch. Go out and support the TSM Academy boys. They are trying to make a lower bracket run. They just beat Barrage, who I thought were a very good team, because they were able to beat TL Academy, which was a solid team. They lost 0-2 to New Org, and then TSM Academy put a hurting on them in a 2-0, and TSM Academy will be playing FlyQuest Academy, who have Kumo, Nixie, or NXI, Triple, Tomo, and Dreams. Definitely not a bad team for the Academy roster. And they will be playing them in round 3 on Friday. If they win that game, then I believe they will play the loser of C9 Academy and Evil Genius Academy. So we will see. It's mostly academy teams left, but to be fair, they brought in 10. So not a huge surprise there. But the Evil Geniuses Prodigies team is looking great. The No Org team, which is, again, mostly former pros, is looking good. This is the first tournament. I don't want people to get upset about, it's still just the academy players and former academy players. Like, that's just how it's going to be for the start. A lot of these young, new rosters, Alorum's team of RBM, Darkwings, Raheen, Rhino, like, these are young players we've never really heard of. They gained a lot of experience. They're going to be looking a lot better. Even Dignitas Mirage, Dragoon, Hayami, DNA, Meech, and King. Not the same King that you're thinking of. They all, are gaining experience. Quacker, Panda, Xeno, Team Luke, Daption, Wildcard Gaming. They are gaining experience. And then Barrage, Pie Cake Lord, Fnatic, Gorka, Winter, and then the really true new young player for that team, APA, or APA. There's a lot of hope for NA. And this is just the beginning of their tournaments. They will start becoming things like EU Masters here in the future. This is just the first iteration of it. It took EU Masters, a good year or two to really kind of become what we know them as now. But in the very near future, I truly believe that Proving Grounds will be a place where we can finally see the great young talents of NA. And I encourage anybody who's listening, if you are young, get into League of Legends. Start playing. There's a very hopeful future for you going forward. There's a lot of money to be made. There's college scholarships, all this stuff. If you are, between the ages of 12 and 18, start getting into League of Legends, start practicing. Get yourself up into a team that can make it into Proving Grounds and then go prove yourself. That's what it's there for. Yeah. Feels good. I'm not going to do my normal outro. I really wanted to go completely off script today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. As always, please go follow us. Please leave reviews. Please let me know what you guys would like to listen to. Please join the Talking TSM Discord. And, with that, thanks for listening or watching if you're watching on YouTube. The show will be coming out every Thursday. And, for at least until the beginning of the summer split. And it is still exclusively for your TSM ear holes. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See you next week.